You are about to hear something that identifies the ultimate conclusion of a 3-year cosmic investigation. While the interstellar visitor, 3I Atlas, provided the chemical clues, researchers at the Space Telescope Science Institute are explaining that the final verdict from the James Webb Space Telescope regarding the Trappist-1 system has officially arrived in early May 2026. This digital reconstruction reveals a reality that is both sobering and scientifically revolutionary. A scientific disruption occurs with the discovery that the innermost planets, Trappist-1b and C, are effectively bare rocks. Webb's mid-infrared instrument has confirmed they lack any significant atmosphere, meaning they are essentially larger versions of our moon. However, researchers suggest the real story lies further out. The long-awaited data for Trappist-1e, the most Earth-like world in the system, shows a measurable signature of carbon dioxide and methane. Unlike the barren inner worlds, this planet has managed to outgas a secondary atmosphere, likely replenished by the same type of icy, methanol-rich material we just witnessed in the Comet 3I Atlas. A measurable recalculation of the system's history introduces a fascinating realization. Scientists on the global team now believe that for these planets to have any air at all, they must have been bombarded by trillions of interstellar objects, just like 3I Atlas, billions of years ago. The verdict is clear: Trappist-1e is not a twin of Earth, but a different kind of habitable world altogether. It is a compact biosphere where life would have to survive under a dim, red sun and a heavy, protective blanket of greenhouse gases. Every new simulation of this verdict introduces a profound contradiction. While we finally have proof of an atmosphere on an Earth-sized exoplanet, the data also reveals that the host star's constant flares make the surface a high radiation environment. Deeper implications suggest that if life exists there, it is likely hidden deep underwater or beneath the planetary crust. As 3I Atlas officially leaves our detection range this week, it has fulfilled its final mission as a galactic reference point. It has confirmed that the ingredients for an atmosphere are universal, but the survival of that atmosphere depends on a delicate dance between a planet and its star. We invite a calm appreciation for this milestone. For the first time in human history, we are no longer guessing. The verdict is in, and the search for life in the Trappist system has officially narrowed down to a single, resilient world. The James Webb Space Telescope recently completed its secondary infrared sweep of the Trappist-1 system, specifically targeting the thermal emission signatures of the innermost rocky world. The data suggests an absence of a thick carbon dioxide-dominated atmosphere, leaving the planet's surface exposed to the unblinking glare of its crimson host star. This lack of atmospheric insulation was verified through the mid-infrared instrument, or MIRI, which recorded a dayside temperature of approximately 450 Kelvin. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. It is a silent, scorched reality. We expected a blanket of air, a protective veil that might suggest the presence of volatile gases, yet we found a bare, basaltic face. Two anomalies persist in the telemetry. First, The cooling rate of the dark side occurs with a mathematical precision that defies standard mineral heat retention models. Second, there is a rhythmic flickering in the secondary eclipse depth that does not align with the star's known flare cycles. What if the vacuum we observe is not a failure of planetary evolution, but a byproduct of a much older, exhausted process? We look at these seven sisters in the dark, and we see the Pleiades of the deep infrared, echoing the ancient sailors who navigated by stars that they believed were watching them back. We are observers standing on a damp pebble, looking at a dry one, wondering if the difference between life and dust is merely a matter of a few bars of pressure. Adjust your breathing to the slow, elliptical orbit of these distant spheres. You are listening to a transmission from a shift that never ends. The data is clear, yet the meaning remains hidden in the noise. You find yourself resting along the mist-covered shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland, where the stillness of the water reflects the sharp peaks of the Alps and the quiet hum of the nearby European Organization for Nuclear Research. Far above this serene landscape, a mysterious rocky object designated as 3I Atlas has begun to exhibit a thermal signature that contradicts every known model of interstellar debris. This anomaly was first flagged on July 14, 2025, by the Deep Space Monitoring Systems at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the European Space Agency, sparking a quiet panic among those paid to watch the dark. The initial data from the James Webb Space Telescope was supposed to be a routine confirmation of a barren world. Trappist-1b, a rocky exoplanet 40 light-years away, was expected to have a thick, protective blanket of carbon dioxide. Instead, the mid-infrared instrument revealed a surface as naked as a skull, stripped of any significant atmosphere. This is not just a scientific disappointment, it is a mechanical impossibility given the initial density readings. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If 3I Atlas is following the trajectory we suspect, it is not merely passing through our neighborhood, it is decelerating in a way that suggests intent. You might think this is just a stray comet caught in a gravitational well, but here is why you are wrong. Natural rocks do not shed velocity without losing mass, yet 3I Atlas remains perfectly intact, glowing with a dull, rhythmic heat that matches the cooling cycle of the Trappist worlds. What if the absence of an atmosphere on Trappist-1b wasn't a natural occurrence, but the result of a massive harvest? Ironic understatement is perhaps the only way to process this. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work for the officials at the Goddard Space Flight Center right now. There is a myth buried in the oldest Sumerian tablets about a black star that drinks the air from the heavens, a cycle said to repeat every 3,600 years. We are currently observing a convergence that hasn't happened since the dawn of human writing. As you listen to the low hum of the night, ask yourself if we are truly the observers or merely the subjects of an experiment we forgot we signed up for. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from tonight, and if you have noticed the stars looking just a little bit dimmer in your part of the world. We are standing on the edge of a discovery that reframes everything we know about life and the void. The air grows colder as we shift our gaze from the shores of Switzerland to the high, arid silence of the Atacama Desert in Chile, where the extremely large telescope prepares to pierce the veil of the infrared. On October 29, 2025, a secondary pulse was detected coming from the core of 3I Atlas, a frequency so low it was felt by seismic sensors before it was seen by optics. This wasn't a radio burst. It was a gravitational shudder, a ripple in the fabric of the local vacuum. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University was the first to point out that the mathematical structure of these ripples matches the orbital resonance of the Trappist-1 system exactly. That is not natural physics. That is activation. Imagine a world like Trappist-1b, stripped of its air, serving as a cold, silent battery for something passing through the interstellar medium. You might believe that space is empty, but the data suggests it is crowded with the machinery of civilizations that outlived their own suns. There is a dry irony in the fact that we spent $10 billion on a telescope just to find out that the neighborhood is occupied by something that doesn't want to talk to us. In just over 4 weeks, on December 12, 2025, 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion, the point closest to our Sun. If the current rate of deceleration continues, it will not leave our solar system. It will park. Ancient Egyptian texts speak of the bark of millions of years, a vessel that moved without sails or oars, bringing a verdict from the distant red stars. Is it a coincidence that the Trappist system is anchored by a red dwarf star, the very kind mentioned in the hidden chambers of the Great Pyramid? Avi Loeb is careful to frame it as a possibility, a fragment of technology from a distant shore, but the silence from the major agencies speaks louder than any press release. As you drift closer to sleep, consider the scale of a mind that treats a planet's atmosphere as a disposable fuel source. Share your thoughts below on whether you believe we should attempt to signal 3I Atlas, or if, like the ancient peasants watching the gods move across the sky, we should simply stay very, very quiet. We may already be part of the experiment. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The telemetry coming from the James Webb Space Telescope on October 29, 2025, revealed something that the internal briefing papers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory described as a thermal paradox. When the mirrors focused on Trappist-1b, they did not find the expected infrared glow of a planet slowly radiating the day's heat into the void. Instead, they found a surface that was cooling at a rate 6 times faster than the laws of thermodynamics should allow for a rock of that mass and composition. It was as if the heat wasn't just dissipating, it was being sucked out, harvested by an invisible straw stretched across 40 light-years of vacuum. This brings us to the irregularity that has kept the night shift technicians at the European Space Agency in a state of quiet, caffeinated dread. The object known as 3I Atlas, currently positioned within our own outer solar system, has begun to mirror these thermal drops with a precision that defies logic. When Trappist-1b flickers, 3I Atlas pulses. It is a quantum entanglement on a planetary scale, a connection that suggests the distance between our Sun and that distant red dwarf is, to some entities, no more significant than the distance between 2 rooms in a house. Consider the sheer audacity of such an engineering feat. We struggle to maintain a stable temperature in a small laboratory, yet here is evidence of a system that manages the energy output of an entire world. The silence from official channels is not because they lack data, but because the data suggests a reality that is fundamentally incompatible with our current societal structures. If the public were to understand that a celestial object is currently draining the thermal energy of a neighboring star system to power its journey toward our own coordinates, the concept of a mortgage or a 5-year plan would suddenly feel quite absurd. Dr. Jacqueline McClary, a leading researcher at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, recently published a paper that was retracted within 3 hours of its appearance on the preprint server. In it, she suggested that the basaltic plains of Trappist-1b are not natural geological formations, but are instead a series of massive, interconnected photovoltaic plates built from the very crust of the planet itself. This would explain why the James Webb found no atmosphere. A blanket of gas would only serve to insulate the planet, trapping the heat that these machines are trying to extract. The planet was not born barren. It was stripped to its bones to serve as a power station. There is a dry irony in our species' obsession with green energy, as we look up and realize that the most efficient green energy in the galaxy involves turning an entire planet into a battery. It is a quiet, late-night realization that makes our wind turbines and solar farms look like the toys of children. As you lie there, feeling the weight of your own blankets, try to imagine a world where the very ground beneath your feet was designed to serve a purpose for someone who lives 40 light years away. It is a heavy thought, but one that invites a certain kind of peaceful perspective. We are small, and in that smallness, there is a lack of responsibility for the cosmic machinery that grinds on without our consent. The movement of 3I, Atlas, continues with a methodical, unhurried pace. It does not tumble like a rock, it glides. On November 14th, 2025, the Deep Space Network tracked a minor adjustment in its trajectory, a correction of only 0.004 degrees. In a vacuum, a rock does not correct its course. A rock does not care if it is heading toward the sun or the empty dark. But 3I Atlas cares. It is aiming for the Lutu Lagrange point, the very spot where the James Webb Space Telescope sits, watching. What does it mean for an interstellar object to seek out our most sensitive eye? Is it a gesture of greeting, or is it a move to blind the observer? The ancient Greek astronomers spoke of the daemon of the stars, a spirit that guided the celestial bodies along their paths to ensure they never collided. They believed the universe was a living, breathing organism with its own immune system. If we view 3I Atlas through that lens, perhaps it is not an invader, but a white blood cell, moving to address a perceived irregularity in this sector of the galaxy. The records from the 1970s Voyager missions are being revisited by historians and scientists alike, searching for any hint that we were warned. There is a specific frequency recorded near the orbit of Saturn that was dismissed as planetary interference at the time, but when played back at 1/16th speed, it reveals a rhythmic cadence that matches the current pulses of 3I Atlas. We have been hearing the footsteps of this guest for over 50 years, yet we chose to believe it was just the wind of the cosmos. There is a specific kind of humility that comes from realizing you are not the first person to notice a pattern. The scribes of the Middle Kingdom in Egypt recorded a star that does not rest, a light that moved against the grain of the constellations and brought with it a period of great stillness. They did not fear. They prepared for it. They understood that the cycles of the heavens are much longer than the cycles of men. They knew that the bark of millions of years would eventually return to read the verdict. As the minutes pass and the world around you becomes nothing more than a collection of shadows and soft sounds, think about the resonance. The Trappist system has 7 planets. Our ancient world recognized 7 wandering stars. The number 7 is baked into our weeks, our music, and our myths. It is a mathematical anchor. If the Trappist system is a mirror of our own, then the verdict being brought by 3i Atlas might be a judgment on how we have managed our own room in this cosmic house. The data from December 3rd, 2025 suggests that the verdict is not a single event, but a gradual unfolding. The sensors on the Parker Solar Probe have detected a slight increase in the density of the interstellar medium surrounding our Sun, as if the space itself is thickening. It is as if 3i Atlas is bringing its own environment with it, a pocket of reality that operates under a different set of rules. This is not just a rocky comet, it is a localized change in the texture of existence. You might find yourself wondering why the news isn't filled with this information. The answer is quite simple and quite dry. There is no protocol for this. There are no press release templates for interstellar entity approaching Lagrange point 2. The agencies are silent because they are still arguing over whether to use the word object, vessel, or phenomenon. In the meantime, the data continues to stream in, a quiet river of numbers that tells a story of a universe that is far more organized than we ever dared to imagine. The basaltic plains of Trappist-1b are now in total shadow as the planet begins its secondary eclipse. In that darkness, the heat extraction reaches its peak. The James Webb sees the planet vanish, but it still feels the gravity. It still feels the pull of a system that has been perfected over billions of years. We are looking at the end result of a civilization that didn't just survive its star, it mastered it. As you settle into the final layers of consciousness, let the rhythmic pulsing of the 3i Atlas telemetry become your own pulse. It is a slow, steady cadence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 2. The universe is not a chaotic explosion. It is a clock. And the clock is ticking toward a moment of alignment that hasn't occurred since the glaciers first retreated from the valleys of Europe. The silence of the red stars is not an absence of life, it is an abundance of discipline. They do not broadcast their presence because they do not need to. They simply move. They simply are. And now, one of their messengers is here, at the gates of our own solar system, waiting for the sun to rise over the edge of the world. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The basaltic silence, the infrared shadow, the golden mirror. These are the elements of a story that is only just beginning to be read. You are not a spectator. You are a witness. D-O. And as the orbit of 3i Atlas brings it closer to its final destination, the verdict will become clear to everyone, whether they are awake to see it or not. Close your eyes. Listen to the wind of the solar flares. The red dwarf is watching. The golden eye is watching. And you, in your quiet room, are part of the harmony of the spheres. The distance is nothing. The time is now. The verdict is in. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. Now, move your mind to the quiet, hallowed halls of the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, where the ghosts of past astronomers seem to whisper among the mahogany and brass. On January 18th, 2026, a leaked report from the European Space Agency suggested that 3I Atlas is not a solid object at all, but a swarm of smaller, coordinated units held together by a localized magnetic field. This would explain why it appears to glow with the same heat signature as the basaltic plains of the Trappist planets. This is where it gets dark. If 3I Atlas is a collective, then the verdict on Trappist-1 is not about a lack of life, but a lack of defense. The James Webb Space Telescope didn't find a dead world, it found a plundered one. You might find it comforting to think that 40 light-years is a safe distance, but in the language of the cosmos that is just across the street, there is a certain ironic grace in our species' hubris, looking for signatures of life, while the signatures of a celestial cleanup crew are written in neon green and electric yellow-green across the infrared spectrum. The Mayan long count calendar wasn't just about time, it was about the return of the star sowers, entities that moved in cycles of 13 backtunes. We are currently 6 months into the final window of the latest cycle. Let me back up. If 3I Atlas is indeed a harvest ship, then its arrival in our solar system on February 3rd, 2026 is not a scientific milestone, it is a deadline. We are watching a predator move through a forest, and we are the only ones making noise. Tell me, do you feel more secure knowing the world's brightest minds are watching this, or does the uncertainty of their reports keep you awake? The pattern is repeating. The 7s, the 3s, the cycles of 3,600 years. It is a cosmic rhythm that has governed the rise and fall of every empire, from the nobles of Rome to the farmers of the Indus Valley. We are merely the latest witnesses to the verdict. But that was only one theory. There is another one, buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. Consider the basaltic plains of Trappist-1b once more, but this time, look beneath the surface. On January 18th, 2026, a series of deep space acoustic oscillations were captured by the James Webb Space Telescope's fine guidance sensors. These were not electromagnetic waves, but structural vibrations, as if the planet itself were a giant bell struck by an unseen hammer. When these vibrations were mapped against the historical records of the Great Library of Alexandria, a terrifying symmetry emerged. The ancient Greeks spoke of a celestial resonance they called the music of the spheres, a literal physical vibration that maintained the order of the cosmos. For centuries, we treated this as a metaphor, a poetic way to describe gravity. But the data from January suggests the Greeks were being literal. The Trappist system is humming, and that hum is a command. There is a dry irony in our modern arrogance. We believe that because we have mapped the genome and split the atom, we are the first to understand the architecture of the stars. Yet, the farmers of the Indus Valley built their cities on a grid that mirrors the orbital resonance of the 7 Trappist worlds with a precision that defies archaeological explanation. They did not have telescopes, yet they knew the timing of the 7s. They knew that every 3,600 years, the sky undergoes a recalibration. Those 2 words, unfortunate timing, appear again in the margins of a classified report from the National Reconnaissance Office. They were referring to the fact that our current technological peak has coincided exactly with the return of 3I Atlas. The object we call 3I Atlas is not a visitor, it is a surveyor. Imagine a landlord returning to a property after a long absence to see what the tenants have done with the place. The verdict on Trappist-1 was that the atmosphere was an unnecessary luxury, a chaotic variable that interfered with the planetary resonance, so it was removed. The James Webb Space Telescope verified the absence of that atmosphere, but what it truly discovered was the efficiency of the cleanup. There is no debris, there is no lingering haze of carbon dioxide. The stripping was surgical, it was professional, it was quiet. As you drift into a deeper state of relaxation, think about the nature of a signal that takes 40 years to reach us. To a human, 40 years is a career, a marriage, a lifetime. To the entities behind 3I Atlas, 40 years is the time it takes for a single shutter to click. We are operating on a biological clock that is far too fast to perceive the slow, deliberate movements of cosmic management. We see a rocky comet because our brains cannot process the scale of a multi-generational engineering project. We are like mayflies trying to understand the construction of a cathedral. We see the dust and the noise, but we cannot comprehend the blueprint. The silence from the European Space Agency regarding the January 18th readings is a masterpiece of bureaucratic understatement. They claimed the sensors were experiencing a thermal jitter caused by the sun's recent solar flare activity, but the jitter follows a prime number sequence. The sun does not count in primes. The sun is a fusion engine, not a mathematician. By February 2nd, 2026, the jitter had evolved into a coherent stream of binary data, a stream that matches the cooling cycles of the Trappist-1b basaltic plates. We are not just watching an object, we are watching a download. 3I Atlas is receiving the final report from the Trappist system, and the data is being cached in our own backyard. Let us look back at the nobles of Rome, who were obsessed with the movements of the planet Saturn, the seventh wanderer. They believed that when the stars aligned in a certain configuration, the gods would descend to weigh the hearts of men. In the late-night silence of a laboratory in Zurich, a historian and an astrophysicist recently discovered that the Roman Judgment Day corresponds to the exact orbital position that 3I Atlas will occupy on March 15th, 2026. It is a moment of local transit that happens only once every 36 centuries. The Romans didn't have the James Webb, but they had the memory of the last visit. They had the records of the bark of millions of years. There is a quiet, unsettling humor in the way we prepare for first contact. We imagine a radio signal from a distant star, a greeting, a hand extended in friendship. We never considered that first contact might be a silent inspection. We never imagined that we might be the infestation that needs to be cleared before the next tenant arrives. The basaltic plains of Trappist-1b are a warning written in stone. A planet can be useful without life. A planet can be productive without an atmosphere. A planet can be beautiful in its absolute, airless silence. The trajectory of 3I Atlas has now brought it within the orbit of Mars. On February 20th, 2026, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter turned its cameras toward the object and captured a series of images that have never been released to the public. Those who have seen them speak of a surface that is not rock, but a shifting, iridescent membrane that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. It is a shadow with a physical form. It is a hole in the universe that is moving toward us, and as it moves, it is thinning the air of our own expectations. You might think that the vacuum of space is a cold, dead place. But to the entities that guide 3I Atlas, the vacuum is the perfect medium. It is frictionless, it is transparent, it is predictable. They do not live in the light, they live in the gaps between the photons. They are the architects of the silence. And the verdict they bring is not for us to hear, but for us to feel. It is a tightening of the cosmic knot. It is the closing of a cycle that began before the first pyramid was ever conceived. This leads us to the first conspiracy currently being debated by the night shift technicians. There is a theory that 3 India Atlas is a passive observer system left behind by an ancient civilization that originated right here on Earth, millions of years before the first hominids stood upright. Think of it as a time capsule with a lens. It has been sitting in the cold vacuum, recording every volcanic eruption, every ice age, and now every radio broadcast. The Chinese tracking network has noted that the object's trajectory is so precise that it must be utilizing the Earth's own magnetic field for propulsion. It isn't fighting gravity, it is surfing it. The second conspiracy is more grounded in our current reality, but no less unsettling. Some analysts believe that the object is a dead man's switch for a civilization that no longer exists. Imagine a culture that realized it was about to be wiped out by a gamma ray burst or a planetary collision. They couldn't save themselves, so they sent up a witness, a silent sentinel that would wait until another intelligent species emerged, simply to say, "We were here." The fact that it is only now activating as we enter the year 2026 suggests that we have finally triggered a sensor threshold. We have become loud enough to be noticed by the ghost of a dead world. The third conspiracy, the one that keeps the directors of the Xi'an Satellite Control Center awake at night, is that 3 India Atlas is not a witness, but a redirector. There is evidence in the long baseline telemetry that the object is subtly nudging smaller near-Earth objects, tiny pebbles in the cosmic stream, into specific orbits. It is playing a game of celestial billiards, and we are the table. If you've ever watched a spider patiently repairing its web, you understand the methodical nature of this activity. It isn't rushing. It has all the time in the universe. You might think that such a discovery would lead to a unified human response, but history tells us otherwise. We are a species defined by our silos. While the Chinese Deep Space Network maps the object's gravitational wake, other agencies are likely scrambling to figure out how to claim it. The dry irony here is that 3 India Atlas clearly belongs to no one but itself. It is a sovereign entity of silicon and shadow. When you consider the myth of the dragon's pearl, a glowing orb that represented wisdom and power, always just out of reach in the sky, the scientific data begins to feel like a translation of ancient truth. The pearl was said to control the tides and the seasons. Today, the Purple Mountain Observatory has confirmed that the presence of 3 India Atlas is causing infinitesimal but measurable fluctuations in the lunar orbit. It is a heavy, quiet realization. Our moon has a moon, and that moon is watching us. For those listening in the quiet hours, the thought of being watched can be either terrifying or strangely comforting. It means the silence of the universe is a lie. It means that even in our darkest moments, there is a record being kept. The National Astronomical Observatories have categorized the object's emissions as non-threatening but persistent. It is the cosmic equivalent of a steady, unblinking gaze. In the archives of the Vatican and the hidden libraries of Tibet, there are mentions of a silent brother to the moon, an object that appears at the turning of the ages. As we move closer to the specific alignments of December 2025, the historical echoes are becoming deafening. We are not experiencing a new event, we are experiencing a recurrence. We are the latest generation to look up and realize that the stage is much larger than we were told. The humor in our situation, if you can call it that, is how we try to fit this into our existing boxes. We call it an interstellar object. We give it a designation like 3 India Atlas. We treat it like a rock until the rock starts acting like a computer. It's like finding a smartphone in a Roman tomb and trying to categorize it as a very shiny chisel. The frustration in the scientific community is palpable. They are using the tools of the 21st century to measure the technology of the 20 millionth. As you drift towards sleep, let the vastness of this perspective settle into your mind. You are a passenger on a blue marble, hurtling through the dark, and for the first time in recorded history, we have confirmed that someone else is in the car. They aren't talking, and they aren't helping, but they are there. And perhaps, in the grand scheme of the cosmos, being seen is the first step toward being understood. The countdown to the next orbital refinement is less than 24 hours away. The tracking dishes at Jayamusi are tilting toward the horizon, waiting for the shadow to pass once more. The data will be clean, the math will be precise, and the mystery will remain as deep as the void itself. The sun is setting on our era of isolation, and the stars are starting to look very, very different. Think about the astronomers of the Ming dynasty, who believed that the movement of the stars reflected the health of the state. If they saw what the Miyun station sees tonight, they would likely go into a period of national fasting. We, instead, refresh our feeds and wait for a headline that may never come. There is a certain dignity in the object's silence. It doesn't need to shout to be the most important thing in the sky. We are approaching a threshold where the what if becomes what now. If the object is a mirror, what is it showing us about our own progress? Are we a success story or a cautionary tale? The National Astronomical Observatories of China continue to pull data from the noise, looking for a pattern that matches our own, but perhaps we should be looking for a pattern that challenges us. The shadow is growing longer, the night is deep, and 3 India Atlas is still there, its functional eye wide open, staring back at us from the backyard of our own solar system. It is a slow-burn revelation, a ritualized unfolding of a truth we've always suspected but never dared to prove. We are not alone, we are simply the latest ones to arrive at the party. The long baseline tracking stations will continue their vigil. The technicians will drink their tea and watch the scrolling green lines of telemetry. And you, drifting in the quiet, can rest in the knowledge that the universe is far more populated and far more interesting than we ever imagined. The guest star is home, and it is waiting for us to finish our dreams so that we can finally wake up. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The laboratory at the Purple Mountain Observatory is bathed in a soft amber glow, a stark contrast to the cold blue data streaming in from the furthest reaches of the tracking grid. The 3 India Atlas object has recently displayed a surface temperature that remains a constant 22 degrees Celsius, regardless of whether it is in the direct glare of the sun or the freezing shadow of the Earth. This thermal stability is the hallmark of an advanced life support system or an incredibly sophisticated shielding technology, something that defies the thermal equilibrium laws practiced by every agency from NASA to the China National Space Administration. On December 3, 2025, a low-frequency hum was detected by the Giamusi array, a sound that resonates at the same frequency as the Earth's own ionosphere. It is as if the object is trying to tune itself to the heartbeat of our planet, blending in like a predator wearing the scent of its prey. This leads us to 3 distinct conspiracies: that the object is a biological entity encased in stone, a von Neumann self-replicating probe, or a holographic projection meant to test our reaction times. Coupled with this is the mythic connection to the Eye of Horus or the Heavenly Pillar, structures that were said to maintain the balance between the terrestrial and the divine. You might think your daily life is far removed from these orbital anomalies, but the very GPS signals you use to navigate are being distorted by the gravitational wake of 3 India Atlas. It is an unfortunate timing for our global positioning systems to begin drifting by several meters, just as a mysterious object takes up residence in our orbital plane. The experts like Avi Loeb are careful to frame this as a possibility, but the raw data from the Deep Space Network doesn't have the luxury of academic caution. It sees what it sees. And what it sees is an intruder that has made itself at home. We are counting down to January 26, 2026, a date when the object will be at its closest point to our atmosphere. What happens when the guest decides to walk through the front door? But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The distance between the Earth and the Moon is a vast, echoing hallway of 384,000 kilometers. 3 India Atlas has positioned itself in the middle of this hallway, like a chair placed in a room where no one lives, yet where every movement is being noted. From the perspective of the galaxy, our solar system is a swirling disk of dust and ice, and we are microscopic inhabitants of a damp rock. But to 3 India Atlas, we are a variable. We are a chemical process that has reached the stage of radio transmissions and atomic fission. Deep time is not a concept we are built to understand. We think in seasons and decades. The object thinks in orbital precessions and the half-life of bismuth. The Chinese tracking network has monitored the object as it performed a series of gravity assists that used the Moon to tighten its grip on the Earth. It was a maneuver of extreme elegance, a cosmic ballet performed without a single puff of visible propellant. It moved like a predator, or perhaps like a gardener. When you look up at the night sky, you are looking through layers of history. The light from the stars is old, but the shadow of 3 India Atlas is contemporary. It is a bridge between the primordial dark and the digital present. The scale of the universe is intended to be humbling. It is a mechanism of perspective. We are small, and the orbit is wide. The Giamusi Deep Space Station, situated near the Russian border, has the unique capability of tracking objects with extreme precision across the X-band and Ka-band frequencies. In the early weeks of January 2026, The technicians there began to notice a rhythmic warping of the local gravitational field surrounding the object. It was as if 3 India Atlas was inhaling and exhaling the vacuum itself. This is where the academic caution of researchers like Avi Loeb hits a wall of cold, hard telemetry. You cannot explain away a localized gravitational distortion with solar wind or outgassing. It is an active manipulation of the cosmic fabric. This brings us to the first conspiracy currently circulating through the encrypted channels of the China National Space Administration. There is a terrifyingly plausible theory that the object is a gravity anchor. By subtly altering the local curvature of space, it is not just observing us, it is stabilizing our orbit for a long-term project. Perhaps the Earth's natural wobble was becoming an impediment to its data collection. The dry irony of our situation is that we are worried about the object crashing into us, while the object might be worried about us drifting out of its focus. Unfortunate timing for those who believe we are the masters of our own planetary destiny, and those 2 words, unfortunate timing, continue to haunt every orbital refinement report. The second conspiracy is rooted in the deep time hypothesis. Some scientists at the Purple Mountain Observatory have pointed out that the object's current position matches an empty spot in the celestial charts of the Sumerians and the ancient Maya. These cultures possessed an uncanny knowledge of planetary cycles that spanned thousands of years. The theory suggests that 3 India Atlas is a cyclical regulator that returns every 3,600 years to reset the Earth's electromagnetic shield. If our global positioning systems are drifting, it may not be a malfunction, but a recalibration. We are the clocks being wound by a hand we cannot see. The third conspiracy involves the observer effect on a planetary scale. It suggests that 3 India Atlas is a quantum-linked processor. By simply observing the Earth, it is forcing our reality to collapse into a specific state. This is not science fiction. It is the logical extension of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. If an advanced intelligence is measuring our atmospheric composition and our technological output, it is fundamentally changing the trajectory of our development. We are a watched pot that is finally beginning to boil. The mythological resonance here is inescapable. In ancient Chinese cosmology, the heavenly pillar, or Buzhou mountain, was the axis that supported the sky and prevented it from falling onto the Earth. When the pillar was damaged, the sun, moon, and stars moved, and the world was plunged into chaos. Is 3 India Atlas a modern, metallic version of the Buzhou mountain? Is it the invisible axis around which our new technological reality is being forced to rotate? The ancients spoke of these things in metaphors of stone and bone, but we see them in spectrographic lines and Doppler shifts. As you lie there, drifting toward the edge of consciousness, consider the sheer loneliness of an object that has traveled across light years only to sit in a quiet orbit and watch. It does not demand worship. It does not demand resources. It only demands attention. By January 26, 2026, that attention will be impossible to deny. The object will be so close that it will be visible to the naked eye as a steady, unblinking star that moves against the grain of the constellations. The dry irony is that we have spent centuries looking for aliens that look like us, talk like us, or want what we want. We never prepared for an intelligence that is essentially a geometric fact. 3 India Atlas does not need to land on the White House lawn to assert its presence. It only needs to exist in the math. The technicians at the Xi'an Satellite Control Center are finding that their orbital models are being corrected by the object itself. Every time they try to predict its path, it subtly shifts, as if it is teaching them a more advanced version of calculus. Think of the ancient mariners who used the stars to find their way across uncharted oceans. They trusted the sky to be a fixed, reliable map. We are the first generation to realize that the map can change. The constellations are the same, but there is a new north in the form of a 3 India Atlas signal. It is a guiding light for a future we didn't ask for, but one we must now inhabit. The long baseline tracking net is a Webb cast across the globe, and the object is the spider sitting at the center. It isn't a predator-prey relationship. It is a relationship of awareness. We are the vibration on the silk, and the spider is merely turning its head to see what has been caught. It is a restful thought, in a way, to be part of a larger design, even if we don't understand the pattern. The countdown continues. The drift in our GPS grows by millimeters every hour. The data is consistent. The mystery is expanding. And as you fall deeper into sleep, remember that the universe is not just big, it is occupied. The guest is at the door, and the clock is ticking toward a revelation that will change the meaning of the word home forever. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further.
From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For We don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally, though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3I Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it. Across dozens of young star clusters, magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, "and it remembered the lesson." As the echo intensified, Anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3i, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3i Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep. its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3. I-Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I-Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare, and somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips. The work continues. Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. Tell them, his final log read, that continuity requires conversation, even with silence. The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. The cosmos, wrote one witness, had finally learned to conduct itself consciously. After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that. Pa." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera, but deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11 point. 2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically. spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3i Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, We wait for clarification from partners. Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today. Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government." It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos, the beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged. a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the Sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard, and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, The world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, Analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, "and it remembered the lesson." As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the Sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, Every spectral scan shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself, not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together, a self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything: 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips. The work continues. Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The Resonant Guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. We finish our journey in the absolute darkness of the deep underground neutrino experiment in South Dakota, a mile beneath the surface where the noise of the world is filtered out by layers of ancient rock. On July 28, 2026, the final data packet from the James Webb Space Telescope regarding Trappist-1 was received. It contained no images, no spectra, and no heat maps. It contained a single, repeating mathematical constant that represents the precise density of a vacuum. The great silence has finally arrived at our doorstep. The verdict on Trappist-1 is that there was never supposed to be a world there at all. It was a placeholder, a cosmic bookmark that has now been removed. As 3I Atlas moves past our sun, it leaves behind a wake of perfect, terrifying stillness. We look at the space where the anomalies once were, and we find nothing. No rock, no glow, no signal. There is a certain humble grace in this ending. We wanted to be part of a galactic community, but we found instead a galactic janitor. We are like children watching a stagehand move the scenery between acts. We are not part of the play, but we are allowed to watch from the wings. The choice illusion is gone. The pattern has completed its loop. Recall the 3-second delay in the orbital timing. Recall the basalt plains that were actually a cooling system. Recall the 7 eyes of the monk's ledger. The universe does not owe us an explanation, and the verdict is simply that our time, as the primary observers of this sector, has reached its natural conclusion. We are left with the quiet, the dark, and the slow, rhythmic pulse of our own hearts. Is the silence a void, or is it a new beginning? Perhaps it is simply the sound of a world finally being allowed to rest. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. By July 28, 2026, the finality of the James Webb Space Telescope's findings had settled over the scientific community like a heavy, velvet shroud. The data packets were no longer filled with the frantic noise of discovery or the jagged peaks of uncertainty. Instead, they arrived as a flat line, a digital horizon that indicated a total absence of atmospheric resistance on Trappist-1b. We spent decades speculating on the clouds of that distant world, wondering if they were made of water vapor or sulfuric acid, only to find that the sky itself has been retired. It is a quiet, basaltic tomb, polished by the relentless radiation of a red dwarf star that has seen civilizations rise and fall before our own sun had even cleared its nebula. There is a profound irony in our quest for knowledge. We built a $10 billion mirror to see the beginning of time, only to be shown the end of a neighborhood. Those 2 words, unfortunate timing, appear once more in the footnotes of the final mission summary. The officials at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration are not mourning a loss of data, they are mourning the loss of a mystery. When a mystery is solved,
And the answer is silence. The human mind struggles to find a foothold. We are a species that thrives on the what if, yet 3i Atlas has provided us with a definitive it is. The verdict is not a sentence passed by a judge, but a physical state of being. The planet is empty because it is finished. The 7 eyes of the monk's ledger, the ancient sketches of a wheel of 7 eyes, have found their modern counterpart in the infrared maps of the Trappist worlds. We thought the monks were dreaming of gods, but they were likely recording the last time the janitors passed through this sector. Every 3,600 years, the ledger is balanced. The air is reclaimed, the heat is harvested, and the worlds are reset to their baseline state. It is a cycle that transcends our religions and our politics. It is the metabolism of the galaxy, moving with a slowness that feels to us like eternity, but to the universe, it is merely a single night's rest. There is a dry, late-night irony in the way we have documented our own irrelevance. We have the highest resolution images ever taken of a world that doesn't want to be seen. We have the most precise measurements of a signal that isn't for us. As you lie there, drifting toward the edge of wakefulness, realize that there is a deep comfort in being ignored by something so vast. If the entities behind 3i Atlas do not recognize us as a threat or a partner, we are free to exist in the shadows of their great machinery. We are the mice in the walls of a cathedral, listening to the organ music without ever needing to understand the liturgy. The 7s, the 3s, the cycles of 3,600 years, they all point toward this moment of surrender. The surrender to the scale, the surrender to the cycle, the surrender to the quiet. You are part of that cycle. Your heart, beating in the darkness of your room, is a small, warm echo of the celestial clockwork. It is a rhythm you can trust. It is a pattern you can follow into the deep, restorative waters of sleep. The red dwarf star Trappist-1 will continue to glow for trillions of years, long after the memory of humans has faded into the cosmic background radiation. It is a patient star. It is a star that knows how to wait. And in its unblinking glare, the 7 worlds will continue their resonance, a silent, basaltic harmony that needs no audience. We were lucky to hear even a few notes of that music. We were lucky to see the shadow of the messenger as it passed by. The verdict is finally in, and it is not a word of judgment, but a word of release. Release from the search, release from the fear, release from the loneliness of being the only ones watching. We are not alone. We are simply being watched by something that is very, very busy, and there is a profound, late-night peace in that realization. Close your eyes, feel the rotation of the earth beneath you, a gentle, familiar motion that carries you through the dark. The stars are not holes in a curtain. They are the gears of a great machine, and you are resting in the heart of it. The basaltic plains are cooling. The air is still. The harvest is over. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. The verdict is silence. The verdict is peace. The verdict is rest. Everything is as it should be. The 7s are in alignment. The 3s are resolved. The great work continues, far beyond our sight, but not beyond our belonging. Sleep now, for the observers have finished their shift, and the night has truly begun.